Welcome to Breaking Modern. I'm here with Ian as always, and we are here to help you with Heroclix character breakdowns and game strategies to help you on your 300 Modern journey. Ian, what's up?
Yo. We're back in the studio with a great topic for today. We're going to be talking a lot about the results of the IC regionals, not the results themselves, but the gauntlet that we have kind of formed. And by we, I mean largely Claywood over at hcunits.net. If you guys are not familiar with that tool yet, that is a great thing to start helping you with building your teams. And today's focus is largely about building teams, but we're not actually going to be building teams, Alec. We're going to be talking about the things you need to be heavily considering when you are building your teams, the things that you need to answer. So I guess we'll move on to the questions then.
So we're not building teams. Just
We're
to
not
be
building
clear.
We are not. We are looking at figures that you need to consider when you are building. Because there are a lot of figures that work, guys. They're just not as heavily publicized as some of the other people with track records that are successful, that are stomping out the meta. But that doesn't mean you can't beat them with the things that you want to play. But the things you want to play need to be able to answer these things in order to succeed. And if they can't, well, you might have to hit the drawing board again. And trust me, I've been there, guys. There's a lot of stuff that I like that I know if I brought to a top level tournament, it might not go the best. But that also shouldn't stop you from doing that if that's the route you want to go. So without further ado, we'll start talking about the gauntlet, meaning all of those figures that need answers because you are going to see them. And if you are playing to win, which if you're entering a high level tournament, I assume to some degree you are, these are those things. So
yes, and we're not going to have the absolute 100% solidified answers for everything. So if you find something, please let us know. We'd love to hear about it because we are also learning as well. This is a big game.
It is a big game. There's a lot of figures, but at the same time, I think there are minimal standouts. When things perform well, especially consistently, when you have such a large opportunity for decision paralysis to occur, a lot of people are just going to latch on to existing builds, maybe add their own flair so it fits their play style more. But a lot of the time, you will see similar figures dominating like the same areas, and then that can expand outside of that. Trends happen really easy, and people like to copy what's popular. Again, nothing wrong with that. If it works, it works, you know. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mentality here. So, yeah, there's a handful of stuff that you need to be prepared for, guys. And one of them that's been running tables for about a year now is Kong. So with Kong, there is a little bit of new flexibility in recency, where previously people were playing him at 50 points almost exclusively. There was the occasional 200 or 300 point one, but now that is starting to become more of a legitimate threat, if you agree with that, Alec.
Yeah, I think even though we think that it's probably going to drop off here soon, I still think because of its placement at the IC regionals and also at New Orleans. Did we see one at New Orleans, actually? I'm not too sure. But I think that it's safe to say accounting for 200 and 300 point is probably a safe bet right now, even though we do anticipate it dropping off.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that you have to have a game plan for. And so to just kind of run down Kong, one of his biggest things is that he is protected outwit, and he reduces penetrating from characters that are equal or less points than him. So at 50 points, we now have a lot of new options above that 50 point range that can deal the pen damage to get him off the board quickly. Whereas previously, before his errata, that did not exist. He just had reduced pen. So his 50 point line was much more potent, much more effective. And so when that change occurred and one-man armies honestly started to become more popular in the meta, the 200 point and 300 point options were looked at more considerably. I think to an extent 200 primarily, with additions like Gaia, which allows him to free heal. So that is a sideline avatar. And then the heart-shaped herb, which also allows him to passively heal just by holding it or standing next to it. So when you have a 200 point figure that can reduce penetrating damage and is healing 2-3 clicks a turn just by existing, it can be a lot to chew through, especially when he offers his other big ability, which is the Quake that deals 3 damage and allows him to generate Kong Wreckage. If he's on the highest terrain, it also does penetrating damage. So he's very effective at dealing with large teams. He also is very good with isolated damage because he can use super strength, get that buff from an object, still deal penetrating damage, all while reducing your penetrating damage. So in the light of a 200-point Kong, you have to have an answer to chew through an extensive dial like that. And you might be wondering how. So what are some good tools for doing so, Alec?
Yeah, so one thing real quick before we continue. As of right now recording, which is currently we're in February 10th, coming up on Valentine's Day. For all you men out there, I'm just letting you know if you have a gal, it's Valentine's Day here soon. But Kong is the number one most played main force figure right now in the meta.
Wow.
So it's not like you're not going to see this figure. You are probably more than likely than any other character on this list going to see Kong, and that's why he's number one right now and on our lists too. But yes, let's get into it real quick. At 50 points, we're going to try and talk of the different tier levels, but at 50 points, probably going to be the most common you're going to see him at. Pen damage against higher point characters, things like Man-Thing, Hadar Yao, Ghost Rider, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but like Big Mr. Mind. I can't believe I'm saying that, but because he did win an IC regionals. The Big Mr. Mind did.
It's wild. I still want answers on that team, but yeah, he did.
If you are out there, I forgot his name. His last name's Ortega. I just know that. If you are out there and you're listening to this, please give us something. Give us anything.
Yeah. Reveal your secrets. This is like the movie The Prestige. Like, what is going on? We need the end reveal.
We need that. Yeah, right. It's
We
like
need the reveal.
yeah, it's like you turned off the Prestige the 20 minutes before the end, and that's where we're at right now. So we need.
Wow, that movie would be awful if it ended 20 minutes early.
Oh yeah, dude, it'd be the worst.
So don't do that to us, Mr. Ortega. I believe it's Manny Ortega, I think.
That's no, it's not Manny. He would.
Oh, it's not.
He'd rather die than play a DC character.
Okay. Well, there you go.
So characters that do penetrating damage like that, Wong, another character that can do penetrating damage. Any character that's higher points that has like a tomb on it, that's like I think a warrior or a martial art. I can't remember what the martial artist.
That's another sideline element that's going to give you penetrating damage and a minimum range of 6. So you can equip that to characters if they have the martial artist keyword and if they're more points than 50. And you can start ripping through Kongs yourself.
Yeah, it's a really good tool for if you have that figure, but they don't do penetrating, but then it's like, oh yeah, a tomb. I forgot about that.
That's a really good way to work a fringe figure in, potentially. You know, I think we're seeing that to an extent with Zala Jor-El. That took second in an IC regional, in the King of New Orleans. And that was a combo that I think people are not really considering. She is just a blank attack and damage, so giving that pen damage, in addition to her trait that allows you to cut off Mastermind and Shape Change, makes her pretty formidable. Like, no Shape Change, no diverting the damage via Mastermind, and no reducers is pretty solid. Now, granted, she's only 50 points, so she will not be doing penetrating to Kong, just a little side tangent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But things like that, if you see something like that and you're just like, man, it just needs that extra like salt, it needs that extra spice. And you're like, oh shoot, I got a tomb. But yeah, so Kong really struggles against Mystic TAs that are Mystic team ability above 50 points as well. So if you're building stuff like Man-Thing, stuff like that, then you're pretty much in the clear because if they hit you, they have to take that damage. Ghost Rider is really, really nice. And if you give him something like the Universal Weapon or you give him the Crimson Gem that gives him super strength, he can just pick up the phone booth and give everybody, which is a pretty big everybody because he's 2 squares long, shape change that's next to him. And it's unavoidable shape change, basically. So
they keep their powers no matter what. So everybody on your team, if Kong is quaking, you get shape change. So a big opportunity to evade the attack. And yeah, Ghost Rider himself is pretty solid at dealing with Kong because he does have the optional penetrating damage and he does clock in at 70. He is, we've talked about this already, but he rides the weirdest line in Heroclix where I can never tell if he's like the best figure ever or not good at all. It's just crazy to me.
I agree with you, man.
Somebody can make him work, though. I firmly stand on that.
Oh, yeah. He's still solid. He'll always be solid. but he's like Mario in Smash Bros. He's just like semi good at everything, and that's his thing.
Yeah. And I mean, if you guys will notice the trend on this list. Typically, the strongest figures in the meta are like really good at one thing. And then in addition to that, they're also pretty hard to kill. I'd
Yes.
say that those are pretty common trends around most things. Like Kong, for example, yeah, he has the reduced pen. He also has a stop click on his last click. At 200 points, he gets more stop clicks. He has more chance of reducing pen. You're not outwitting him. So having the defense to back up your offense is usually a turnkey for making a figure very, very potent. We see the same thing in Carnage Silver Surfer, Hadar Yao, who we'll talk about later. Man Thing to a degree where he just has traded invincible. He has traded stealth. So a big thing to factor in just for things you're playing against or playing is what is the sustain of that character?
Hmm.
How much does your opponent have to invest into killing that? And so Kong is something that if you're spec'd correctly, he's honestly pretty easy to deal with when you're given the opportunity. And the reason being is at 50 points, he still is only that 4 clicks long, and he has the stop click. But in addition to penetrating damage, you also have things like power erasers. And you can find that in things like the Prime Blue Beetle, which I think is seeing quite an uptick in play.
Mm-hmm.
The Captain America Pegasus, who just says you can't use defense powers when he attacks. Giving him something like a Bucky's Arm to now make him a 12 for 4 means that Kong is just off the board. You have Hypersonic to engage, so he can just clear him pretty easily. Things like Ace to shut off Protected Outwit, and she herself has Outwit, so you can just get rid of it. Now you can attack Kong with whoever. And this is applicable outside of Kong as well. So Blue Beetle does have like a restriction. It has to be 75 points or less. It's not going to work for everybody. Captain America, though, is literally just your defense is gone. So another
Mm-hmm.
point, Ghost Rider, because if these things become more popular, if power erasers become more dominant, which to a degree I think they are, but not to a point where it's the only thing you should focus on. Yeah, it's definitely something that you need to consider. But for taking down specifically Kong, power erasers are worth their weight in gold. With that, another great power erasing tool can be found in the trick arrows with the nth metal arrow,
Mm.
which allows you to just turn off stop clicks. So when you hit, you can say, nope, you don't get to use stop, and now boom, you're flying right by it. So if you're doing enough pen damage and you have that trick arrow, that's another way to do it. Also, against the 200 point Kong, he might still get that impervious with reduced pen, but you still can shut off those stop clicks. So against 50, penetrating damage, I think most of the time, Alec, is getting you there. You don't necessarily need to get rid of that stop click. Usually you can follow it up. And another thing with Kong that makes him easier to take down is he's huge. He's a 2x2. He's a colossal. So most of the time you'll be able to see him as well. So making sure that you have something in your toolkit to deal with him quickly is very important, especially if you're running a larger team, because Kong is able to take those 2 actions if your force is larger than his. And if he gets to do that, if he gets to quake you twice, you're just in for a really, really bad time.
Yeah, that is something that you do have to look out for. You need to if you need to be aware that if you are playing a Kong, you need to be aware of your characters, especially if you have character generators like Butterfly or Timebreaker that just consistently pump out characters. You need to be aware of your character economy against a Kong because he can just run in with 2 actions and just kind of do a lot of damage, especially if he's close.
Yeah. I mean, by himself, he starts in row 2. If you have more characters, I can move him 8, so he's in square 10. I can charge to 14 and giant reach out to 17.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he's colossal, so he can probably see you in the same way you can see him. So making sure you don't necessarily always need to have less characters, but if you have more, this should be, I think, the number one thing that you need to kill. If Kong gets free reign to do something, he will take it every time, and he will hurt you really bad. And to be honest, with his stats, a 12 for 4 at 50, he doesn't need much support to make himself known as a threat. He can just kind of, he can hurt you really bad. We'll put it at that.
Oh yeah, he's very, very powerful still as an attacker. I still think, I mean, people are kind of sleeping, not, I wouldn't say sleeping on him, but I think people have kind of written him off as an attacker because of that change to his defensive, reduces penetrating, but he's still obviously the number one used character right now in the IC regionals, so he's still quite the wrecking force right now.
Mhm.
A second thing real quick, if you're like, hey, you know what, Ace, Blue Beetle, Captain America, those are all great, but they don't really match what I'm trying to play right now, and I don't really have space to kind of fit them in. If you have 10 points, Mind Gem. Mind Gem is a really good option on the sideline now. If you have sideline space and just kind of 10 points hanging around, you don't know what to do with it. Having Mind Gem as just a conditional once per turn or whatever for the rest of the game power eraser. Even if you get rid of his quake or you get rid of his charge or you get rid of his willpower, that could still save you a ton of stuff in your on your side. It's still a lot of defensive utility. You do have to
Yeah.
hit him, but if you play a character that has multiple attacks or like precision strike, it's really easy to kind of hit him. It's
Yeah, so I mean, it is just on hit after resolutions. You may choose a power that character can use, and that character can't use that power until your next turn. So hitting a 200-point Kong and saying, "All right, no impervious," yeah, you can spin his dial pretty quickly if he's just got blank defense.
I
So
agree.
that's another reason why I think 200 points has kind of fallen out of favor. But going into the 200, that is again still something you really have to factor in. Like if you come across a 200-point Kong, which I think is still pretty likely, but again, I think we're both agreeing less likely because I mean, we just listed off a lot of things that really hurt him. So I think players might be a little more averse to playing that. At the same time, though, if you do see one, having things that strip him of powers is a lot more valuable than the pen damage. So pen damage, I think, is something that you can just passively have. Like you can find characters that do that. You don't necessarily need to play that penetrating damage character to take down the Kong. I think you'll just naturally find that penetrating damage is pretty useful, universally good. So it'll end up on your build in some fashion. So if you're particularly worried about seeing a 200 or 300 point Kong, that's where the power erasers I think hold a lot more value because you're probably not playing a 200 point plus character who has pen damage who's going toe to toe with Kong.
True. Yeah. There's not many other figures that are 200 points or higher that are being played.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I think just one more thing real quick is he's a Murnable target, so if you are playing Murn, I think that's very powerful. Characters that do well against him are like Ulysses Bloodstone, who just do really good against monsters in general. I'm not saying you should change your team to fit Ulysses on there if you're scared of Kong, but Ulysses is just really good in general, I think. I think that he's
Yeah.
being slept on. And then also getting rid of his utility in terms of like he relies a lot off of his terrain markers like heart-shaped herb and stuff like that to mitigate his healing because most of the time 200 and 300 point Kongs you're going to be running like Cathan on the sideline, which he dealing one unavoidable for each action that he's being given is very hard to shake off if they have nothing to heal it off with. So
Yeah. So
anyways,
yeah, the rundown on larger Kongs, like you will always see him. If somebody's playing 200-point Kong effectively, he will have Gaia. Cathan is kind of a question mark. I don't think everyone's doing that because every click matters on your 200-point figure. So are those +1 stats worth it? They might not be. But guess what? If you have another mystical character on your build, Alec, you can just give Cathan to them at the beginning of the game. So they will have Cathan on their sideline. Whether or not it's on Kong, that's to be determined. And that's match by match. In addition, they're going to have the heart-shaped herb that is a 0 point. I'm healing every turn. Pretty much every build, and Kong included, will have the phone booth as well to get shape change. So Battle Fury is yeah, the stonks on Battle Fury flying through the roof. So yeah, Gaia, Cathan, uh, heart-shaped herb, phone booth. And is there any other auto includes with the 200-point Kongster?
yeah, so Kong, look out for him and hopefully those are some decent options for you guys to mitigate your Kong.
Yeah, definitely consider that you will more than likely sit against a 50-point one. And less so, you'll sit against a 200 one. Could happen. I don't know if people share similar sentiment to Alec and I with that. But yeah,
Probably not.
you might just see it.
I think, yeah, I don't know. I think, I think we're done with 200 and 300 point Kongs moving forward.
Well, I think in a similar light, we should also talk about another figure that I think is just absolutely dominating. He has been on a lot of winning builds. He's been on a ton of top 8 builds. He is also incredibly hard to take down, very cost efficient, has a lot of ways to get around stop clicks, just various rollouts, things like that. And that is Colossus Prime. So
Mm.
this guy, 80 points, 12, 12, 20, and 5 for damage, a full dial of reduced pen impervious, full dial of charge super strength battle fury. He shuts off all protected mind control on the map, has mind control himself, and when he does it, you take 5 damage.
Hmm.
You take his printed damage value. And guess what, Alec? That's not an attack, so it burns right through your stop. Stop is only triggered on attack, so he can just melt through things very easily. He also is heavily benefited by things like the heart-shaped herb, the phone booth, not particularly because, or wait,
He's
yeah,
mostly
he
probably
just,
gonna be holding it, right?
yeah, he will be carting that around. And so this is another situation where you're probably looking at similar figures that shut off powers here because the reduced pen impervious is on a stop, or it's not on a stop click, it's on a special, but he also has power cosmic. So yeah, it's particularly difficult to get rid of. Your penetrating damage will do no good here
Mm.
at any point level. He doesn't have any restrictions there. And yeah, you're going to need some kind of erasure if you want to erase him off of the map. So, what are some things that you're looking at against Colossus here?
Yeah. So number one, also I was just gonna say Colossus. Also, I just realized this. He could just run through your phone booth. So keep that. If you see Colossus Prime, keep that close, or
Mm-hmm.
have someone pick it up because he could just run right through it, and you're just like, okay, well now I'm down a whole element that I was building around.
Sorry, I got to take a call. And then he just breaks the phone.
Yeah, I gotta take a call. um, uh, Power racers again, and I know this is gonna be not with everybody, but power racers kind of tend to be the answer. It's just sometimes it's kind of the justification of playing them. We mentioned a couple earlier, so Captain America, Blue Beetle, Ace. Uh, Blue Beetle, I remember playing against Colossus Prime with Blue Beetle, and as soon as he ran up, I just turned off his impervious and he just melted. So that is the one thing about Colossus Prime is I know you can't get rid of his impervious conventionally, but if you can just power race that or power race his charge, he can't do much if he can't charge. He has no range. He's got Battle Fury, so even if he had range, he couldn't make it. So I think that's a really big thing. One of the other things is once he gets hit off that first click, he becomes a lot less threatening. And I don't know if you feel the same way about
Oh,
that.
100%. Once
Hit,
he takes about 3 damage, he's not the man he used to be.
I agree. He lost his manhood. He lost his man card after click 3.
So he's definitely he does also ride an interesting line though. When you play against a Colossus, he is so threatening. He is not particularly easy to hit. He often comes equipped with something like a motorcycle, which is giving him, in addition, either combat reflexes or super senses. That also improves his reach so he can get to you easier. He's running through blocking. It's very hard to mitigate this guy. Like he can typically get the attack he wants. And he's only 80 points, so you've got 220 other points that you have to worry about on the board. And in a game of Heroclix, if you spend your turn chipping away at something and it doesn't die, you're losing tempo. You need to have tempo in a match. And so he's very much a brick wall that you want to punch, but you also understand that, oh, I'm about to punch a brick wall. Like this is going to hurt. So reducing his effectiveness by doing some damage to him with things like the heart-shaped herb existing, he can just heal back like relatively easily. So kind of chipping him away is interesting because it can help you, but at the same time, there's a lot of ways to just heal him. And that makes it particularly difficult. There's a reason this guy is as good as he is. He's got a deep dial. So yeah, really the biggest answer to Colossus is erasing those powers. Alternatively, killing the things around Colossus can typically be the answer. I've seen a lot of games where he is the last thing alive.
Hmm.
And maybe it even goes to time. So if you do hit him down to those clicks, yes, he can heal back. And so we'll kind of pivot into another thing we'll talk about. We'll go in more depth on this later. But there are things now with Collector's Trove being legal, like the Bloodstone, which reduces all opposing healing by 1 click. Things like this are very potent against both Colossus and Kong. Just saying that heart-shaped herb doesn't exist anymore, that's huge. That's a big reason why I think 200-point Kong falls out of favor. There's just no more free value out of that. So I really like that. And then, yeah, I mean, it's so difficult to say objectively, this is how you can beat this figure. Because there are probably situations where more of the opponent's team is more threatening than him, which is wild to say. And there are probably situations where it's like, okay, I have to limit him in order to win.
Yeah.
And to discern that, you really have to consider what your team is. Another really popular thing that Colossus players do that I hadn't thought a ton about is if you're playing something like a phone booth or a heart-shaped herb yourself, Colossus can come in, mind control you, take that move action via the mind control, make you drop your object, so your phone booth or your heart-shaped herb, and then punch you. So now you're away from your terrain, which is weakening you, and he's hitting you with your own figure, and he's also doing damage to the figure he mind controlled. So the amount of tempo that this guy can create is just absurd. I think it's pretty well known at this point. And so your best bet really is to just erase his powers, and that happens in varying ways. At the same time, though, you may find yourself in a situation where you need to ignore him. On top of that, we can revisit the trick arrows as well, which the Too Dangerous arrow, which does 3 damage to all adjacent characters of a hit target, that can just get around his 20 defense, so you don't necessarily need to hit that high value. You can chip him away. So there's a few ways, but honestly, Alec, am I wrong in saying there's not like a dead set way to deal with this guy, and that's why he's as big of a menace as he is?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that how big of a menace he is. He's number 8 on the most used characters in the IC regionals, and then the next closest prime is Blue Beetle at 19. So he's like,
oh wow,
he's like, it's like not even close that he's the most used prime. That's main force.
I think another power to consider is Precision Strike, like making sure so that when you are attacking him, you're getting some value for doing so. As we said, he's not nearly as scary on click 4 as he is on click 1. So making sure that you're at least getting some damage through to weaken his viability, I think is important as well. You know, I'm a lot less scared of like an 11 for 4 as opposed to a 12 for 5, especially when the defense drops as well, and I know I can follow up on that. So another thing I think you need to consider against Colossus is his improved movement. He does not have improved movement elevated. And there are other things that we'll talk about later as well, like the traffic barrel to mitigate that. So potentially mitigating his mobility by positioning on elevated or around elevated so that he either has to stop when he goes up it, or he might not even be able to reach you, so that way you can get the first attack on him, I think is pretty crucial. So map choice will matter a lot against this guy too, because he's not a flyer. He's not just moving around wherever he wants. You can kind of catch him off guard with positioning correctly as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with everything with that. He's more than likely, probably, like you said earlier, going to be the last figure that you have to deal with.
And it's about, like, this figure, I think, is less so about taking him down and more so mitigating his effectiveness.
Yes.
Because while he can find opportunities, again, you're going to see him with the motorcycle a lot. And at that point, he's like an 8 square charge. So more than likely, if you're on just a flat map, he's going to get where he wants to. He's going to run through that blocking. But if you can position on a building in a way where it's like, okay, Colossus might be able to get to me, but when he does, maybe I'm only allowing him to attack certain figures. So that's where, in more of a general sense, you need to think about your team in an aspect of, what am I willing to trade? This isn't going into like an AI bot match where you're dropping 50 kills, headshot, and everything. You have to understand that you're going to lose pieces too. So against certain matchups, you have to consider, what is my win condition? What is the figure that's going to, push me through? What do I need to stay alive? What do I need to protect the most? So if you can force your opponent into making suboptimal decisions based on the way that you position, like maybe, hey, in this matchup, I'm willing to give up my Kong. So I'll put Kong in front of my team and body block. Or maybe it's like Ghost Rider, where it's like he's not as good in this matchup, whatever that matchup is. So maybe I'm okay with like not protecting my powers this time around. And these are just, very, very hypothetical, but that's something you should also be thinking about when you're considering key matchups. What figures am I willing to lose? And that is something that you definitely 100% have to consider against Colossus, because while Power Eraser exists, I wouldn't say that any of them are like a direct answer, like you can take him off the map in the same way that you can with 50-point Kong. More than likely, this guy's going to stick around for a bit. One-turning this character, oh boy, it's not easy. It's really not. And if you do, again, he's only 80 points.
I was going to say,
What's your
congratulations.
opponent going to do?
If you can one-shot this character, congratulations. You're a way better player than I can. That's crazy.
What? You got to show me what you're shooting him with. My God.
I know, man. I got to see the guns on you, man. I got to see the dice you're rolling with, the hot dice or whatever you got cooking.
Are you shooting your dice out of a Barrett 50 cal? That's my question. And if you are, please send me a video. I'd love to see that.
Yes, you'll be featured. That's feature worthy.
Hey, Judge, is my opponent allowed to have a gun that's as big as me? Yeah, it says in the rules it can be as long as 100 inches.
Yeah, it's in the rule book, 24B. Oh, shoot.
That's why you got to study, guys.
You got to read the comp.
Got to read the comp. So I think that's enough on Colossus Prime, guys. It's a game-to-game thing. You have to look at what your opponent is playing in addition to that. And there's a lot of nasty stuff you can fit in with 220 points. So the first decision you're making with him is, am I looking to KO this figure, or am I looking to mitigate him?
Yeah.
And once you have that should determine your positioning. The next question you're asking is, what am I willing to give up? What do I need to guarantee to reduce his effectiveness or kill him? What do I need to hit him with, and how do I keep that alive?
Yeah, and I think another thing is think about the unconventional, right? So I think a lot of things we talk about are probably the most conventional ways to deal with Colossus. But then there's like more unconventional ways. Think about ways of just like, I think when you think about the way that you can mitigate Colossus, that opens up your strategy a little bit more. So like, for instance, if you're running trick arrows, maybe it's phantom zoning. Like Colossus isn't very good if he's not in the fight. If you just like throw him back to the beginning and say, see you later, idiot, like he's not very, very good.
Phantom Zone arrow, appreciate it.
Yeah, heck
the second coming of Time platform.
The second coming, it didn't really take off, but I think if you're just like sick and tired of a figure and you have trick arrows, it takes up a trick arrow slot, but you could just say, you know what? I'm done with this. Be gone.
In addition, the acid arrow as well, where it reduces how much you can reduce damage by 1. That could, if you have a team that chips away, like a lot of little attacks, that could help you with the effectiveness. I would say tokening him, but he's got willpower from the cosmic energy, so that's a chance. And that's a chance that I think most times you probably don't want to take. So it's a little scarier. But then also just things like Pulse Wave. Pulse Wave can chip away, can also deal with the rest of his team if you can position for it correctly. And then you can also activate trick arrows off of Pulse Wave. So one of my favorite combos that I saw recently was a Harley Quinn chase with trick arrows, pulse waving people. So she gives friendlies within the pulse wave +1 attack, and then she can trigger a trick arrow afterwards, which one of the coolest ones to do it with is the knockback arrow, because this makes it so they take 2 damage from the knockback. Pulse wave is still active, so you can pulse wave a whole team for 1, pick somebody, hit him into a wall, and deal them 3. Mm-hmm. Huge value. I love that. So finding a pulse wave figure, it's not a horrible thing either. And guess what? It's really easy to do right now because any figure can be a pulse wave figure.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, man. A lot of we're gonna see a lot of pulse wave, I feel like, jumping out.
So that's another thing that I think in general you should be looking to answer, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about specifics. So another specific figure, everyone, Alec, has had nightmares of this figure. Personally, I don't know. I'm just kind of over caring about him. It's something you have to have a plan for, but that's Beetlejuice. And if you're talking about Beetlejuice, you have to talk about the yin to his yang, old Chair Panther. So Beetlejuice, if you live under a rock, if you don't know what he does, he's a free sideline element where when he comes out, he shuts off all free actions. No free actions. Oh, you want to outwit him? Too bad. Oh, you want to sidestep? Oh, you want a flurry? Not going to happen. Running shot, pulse wave? Can't do pulse wave, but you can do a normal attack. He limits the game to a halt. So is he going to be optimally brought out by every team that exists? Absolutely not. Not every team is looking to bring Beetlejuice out. Also, there are so many things that are good on the sideline that a lot of teams that might have just put him there to kind of scare you, they're probably not doing so anymore. Does that mean that you need to not worry about him at all? No. You need to have an answer for what am I doing when I have no free actions? And that's a whole episode in itself. Oh my goodness. But an easy way around that, Alec, is the Legacy Black Panther, who says at the beginning of the game, you get to pick 2 sideline elements off of your opponent's force, and they are canceled out as long as Black Panther is on the map. So if your team heavily relies on free actions, if you need those to function, say you're playing something like an Ultra Chase Collector, this is your guy right here. So he is the number one answer to Black Panther. Despero from Masters of Time is also a reasonable one as well. Just saying you don't get to exist. I think we're also kind of past the point of Beetlejuice being on a main force. I haven't seen it. Have you?
Not a ton. Yeah, I agree. I don't think you will probably 99% of the time see him on the sideline.
Yes. And when you see him on the sideline, you also have to factor in that it takes 3 power actions to bring this guy in, and you do have to have something to damage to keep him in the game. Because at the end of the turn, you can either deal unavoidable damage to a character, or you can take him back, put him on the sideline. So the most common way, and this is probably when you know you're going to have to deal with a Beetlejuice, to bring Beetlejuice in is with time breakers, because they are autonomous actions. So if you have 3 of them, you can just give them all 3 tokens. Here's Beetlejuice. Didn't cost your opponent anything other than they're tokening up some characters that probably weren't going to do anything anyway. Or if they did, they've already done them. So very easy. So if you spot the time breakers on an opposing team, know that Beetlejuice is, he's coming along with. But what if you didn't have to deal with that at all? That's Chair Panther, baby. So tell us about Chair Panther, Alec. What are we doing against him? What are we doing with him? What's going on there? Why is he like $200 right now?
Oh my gosh. Number one, I don't know. I don't think a figure that old, a figure that old should never be $200. But
Fair.
anyways, but the reason why he is fetching such a high price is because at the beginning of the game, you may choose 2 game elements from your opponent's sideline. Game elements chosen for this trait can't be brought into the game or used in its sideline active effect. So this affects a lot of things. Number one, if you were running something that swaps out, like Butterfly or the swap Batmans, you cannot bring the characters that Black Panther has chosen onto the board until Black Panther is out. Once Black Panther is gone, this effect ceases to exist. This also affects Beetlejuice, obviously, because Beetlejuice, he's a free sideline active, so, and that's his whole thing, is off the sideline. So you can just say, nope, sorry, buddy, you're going to stay over there, and I'm just going to sit on my throne and do my thing.
Do my thing.
The other thing that is really big is the one-shots. The one-shots are all sideline actives. I know a lot of people haven't had their hands on a one-shot yet, so I think it's kind of, people are starting to finally get their hands on it now, but a lot of people are forgetting, it says that they're on their sideline, but there's no sideline active. There is a sideline active. It is a sideline active 100% of the time. So you can totally shut down a game element that is the one shot. And obviously the highest contender would probably be like Rivalry. If you see a Rivalry and you're running Black Panther, that's probably one of the bigger ones you want to target first. So the one thing that this does not affect, because of how the rules are, and if I'm mistaken, please let me know, is the Egyptian gods, or the stuff that is during game.
Winged Dragon of Ra?
The Winged Dragon of Ra.
The Tormentor?
I summon Pot of Greed. It allows me to draw 3 additional cards from my deck.
So that's what we're countering. Okay.
So that's what I'm countering, the Pot of Greed. But the gods are during forced construction, and it's because of the phrase. Let's see where it's at. It's if this game. So that's what it is. This game. That wording right there states that since it was during forced construction and it's for the rest of the game, it means that even if this power is lost or the character is lost, they
The
can still
source
use it.
granting it is taken away. It's already been triggered,
Yes,
so you can't shut it off. It's not like a think of it as like it already happened rather than it's going on.
exactly. So be careful if you are running Black Panther or Despero, which I'm a full supporter of. He's still very good. He does a lot of utility still, and he's way cheaper than Black Panther. But if you are running Black Panther, just be aware that the
You have Black Panther at home.
yeah, he's Black Panther, great value Black Panther. Um, the other thing about Black Panther is obviously if you KO him, you that power goes away, so you can get your sideline stuff back after that. He's got leadership, outwit, and he can remove a vibranium token from your sideline. And if you do, you can remove an action token from a friendly character. So you give friendly characters a little bit more potency, because you could just say even if they're your best attacker is double tokened up, Black Panther could just say, "I'm going to remove a vibranium token," and boom, you're ready to go, buddy. So something that I've thought about is if you put stuff on your sideline that's worth Black Panthering, I think a lot of people are probably, if they see Beetlejuice, they're probably going to be like, Beetlejuice, that's the number one thing. But then picking that second thing is kind of hard, because if you stack your sideline with stuff that is all really, really good, for instance, like the Mimic, like Rivalry, like other one-shots, like Chthon, it's kind of hard to pick. So if you kind of...
Well, Chthon is in the same boat as the gods.
Oh,
It
he
actually
is?
it actually benefits your opponent if you pick that because
That's
Chthon
right.
gives the +1 stats, and if you pick him, if you take him off the sideline, now your opponent doesn't take the damage. They just have the +1 stats.
That's right. That's right. That's
So
right. I
don't
totally
pick
forgot about
Chthon ever, unless you like I don't know, unless you're just memeing.
that. Unless you're memeing. Unless you're like in like, I don't know, the national game and you're losing and you decide to want to bring out Chthon. Something like that.
Well, who would do that?
I don't know.
No,
Some
no.
idiot.
I think the section with Black Panther is less so about how you deal with him, because to be honest, he's pretty easy to kill. He's just like a mastermind figure. It's just, I think it's a figure you need to be aware of, where it's like, if you're building a team, it's like, yeah, and I'm going to bring in Beetlejuice. Just know that could be taken away from you. If you're also building a team that functions solely on rivalry, which is that allows you to just choose an attack is a hit, they could just say no rivalry, and now it's like, oh, I have to take my chances with my hit. I have to actually roll the dice. Row.
Rut-row. Rolling dice in a dice game.
If you're building a team that is like very centric on a sideline element, like that's like a key component to making sure that you have consistency throughout a day, just know that Black Panther can take that away. While he is the number one answer to things like Beetlejuice, just also factor in that other sideline elements like your butterfly swaps can be taken away as well. But I do like your idea, Alec, of kind of baiting your opponent by, maybe your team, you're never going to bring out Beetlejuice. Like it's not even factored into your repertoire. But if you put him on there, your opponent might be like, man, if he pulls that out, I'm screwed. So now he's wasting one of his target bands.
Yeah,
So I like a lot.
Yeah, I think baiting that it kind of like one of those things where it's like you kind of are beating your opponent before the game begins, kind of thing.
Mind games, 4D chess.
4D chess, that's right. This is a really good way to tell people you're really good at 4D chess, is looking at their sideline. But other than that, yeah, Black Panther, leadership and outwit, he's never going to be in range to really do outwit because this character is probably going to hang back.
Oh, yeah, corner of the map, chilling.
Yep, corner of the map, machine in front of him, nothing's getting to him. Other than that, he kind of just 30 points, so does nothing else.
Yeah. For the most part, he might be removing an action token here and there if you do have vibranium tokens on your team. But for the most part, you are playing him solely to either enable your team that has a lot of free actions, making sure Beetlejuice can't exist, Or it's like, I don't want to see rivalry or fortify this game. Things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, just be wary of that. Another thing that kind of I think goes into our next figure we're talking about, which is Butterfly. With Black Panther getting 2 selections of your sideline, another thing to consider is you can potentially, this does cost you a sideline spot, but you could double up on the same figure. So if I
Hmm.
have, let's say for example, I have 2 of the same figure for Butterfly swap, I can make Black Panther spend both of his if he really doesn't want that figure to come out.
Yeah.
So that's another way to not necessarily beat your opponent, but to minimize the value they're getting from something. And this is, again, Black Panther in the chair. You're going to see him. You're going to see him. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. He'll be out there. So be prepared to lose some of your sideline.
He is he was the fourth most played at the Clicks regionals. So yes, I agree.
Yeah, with Butterfly, I mean, what can you say about this guy that hasn't already been said? Surprisingly, Alec, versatility is very, very good in Heroclix.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much every swap keyword outside of like Avengers, but even then, to an extent, has been good. Anytime you had the ability to re-optimize your team or, sub in, sub out things for specific matchups, it's typically very valuable. It's why
Right.
things like the Avengers 60th chases, the Masters of Evil were so good, why X-Men swap dominated for as long as it did, why it made it onto teams that weren't even X-Men. It's just like, oh yeah, 100 points of my force can switch when I needed to. Having options is crazy. That's the biggest thing with Butterfly. In addition to that, he makes bystanders. Now, these can't be masterminded to, but they can really annoy your opponent. You can carry them into them. You can just move them into them. You can block off paths so they don't ignore things like characters. Makes it harder to get around. You can mind control through them without range or line of fire if they're adjacent to a target. So if you have a figure with like a high attack value, you can just sit them in the corner of the map and get value out of like cross map mind controlling. So you can create a lot of interesting scenarios with just that ability alone, where it's like, all right, you don't want to come to me, I don't want to come to you. We'll just send butterflies at each other and we'll try to mind control each other because it's a no risk, opportunity with the Pogs being 0 points. So you're getting massive mind control value, but really the value is versatility. So if you see a butterfly, 100%, Alec, you're going to see the death metal Wonder Woman on the sideline. There's
Absolutely.
just no question about it. And so we'll just kind of individually talk about why these figures are butterfly options. Death Metal Wonder Woman, I think, is the #1 butterfly option. I don't think it's particularly close. She gets to revive a figure when it dies. This means that when you are playing against a Death Metal Wonder Woman, you pretty much have to knock her out immediately. Otherwise, she will get value. If she has to use it on herself to revive, granted, they're still getting value because she's coming back, but they're getting a lot less than something that says, say they have like 3 stop clicks on their last clicks. That is it's a lot better to just kill that Wonder Woman than to play into the strategy your opponent wants, where it's like, okay, when you kill my big nasty thing, it's just right back. But the thing with that is that more than likely, the same way that you sit back a Black Panther, that Death Metal Wonder Woman probably isn't coming out to play. So you're going to have to extend a bit to KO her. She's probably going to be body blocked. She's probably going to be behind some barrier because really, she's a Charge Blades leadership piece. She also offers Wonder Woman team ability, which is one of the best copyable team abilities. The figure just gives your team so much sustain. And this is another thing where it's like, okay, we were talking about killing Colossus earlier. If you killed Colossus and there's a Death Metal Wonder Woman on the map, Colossus just comes back and you have wasted so much time. So she is something that you have to target immediately. And because she's sitting back there, guess what, Alex? She also plays in perfectly with the butterflies effect, which just allows you to sit back, send out bystanders endlessly, and mind control through them. So she creates a lot of pressure. She tandems so well with Butterfly, and she is absolutely probably a top 3 piece that if I was sitting down blindfolded at a random HeroClix game, this might be like, I don't know, the #1, 2, or 3 thing that I expect to see across from me. She's that good.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, she does so much. She has really good keywords, Mystic's team ability, like you said, and Wonder Woman team ability, which is, I would say right now, probably one of the best team abilities. I mean, Spider-Man and Wonder Woman go hand in hand, but right now, Wonder Woman is a little bit more accessible. But
Yes.
Yes, I 100% agree with you with everything. And for what it's worth, having an 11 attack mind control attack isn't terrible. Um,
No,
but I mean, obviously you can get that up. It's a little bit easier, but overall,
another leadership is always valuable as well.
oh yeah, being able to know that you can take if butterfly is your only leadership option, being able to take that leadership option and turn it into either Death Metal Wonder Woman
But
or
you have to deal with her.
oh,
Like
100%.
she creates probably the most pressure of like any figure ever because again, you're playing her with like way nastier figures. And if it's like, oh, I'll just go kill that nasty thing, Death Metal Wonder Woman says one time, no, you will not. So she has to go. If she's using the revive on herself, but again, she has mystics, so like you're getting punished for doing this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she is definitely a figure that, I mean, 9 times out of 10, like if she's on the board, she is one of, if not the first things that you are taking down.
Absolutely. A good way to mitigate that as well is hitting her for the appropriate amount of damage to hit her stop click and then doing some type of knockback.
Yes.
That would
So
be
3 damage plus knockback will KO her and force her to revive.
yes. And even if you have to expend something that gives knockback or something, it's definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Um.
If she heals past that stop click too, like, oh my gosh.
Oh
Like, this
yeah.
figure's just disgusting.
Oh yeah. 100%. She is bananas. I agree.
So
Um.
if you play Butterfly, just know that this is you're going to probably see this one. So if you're playing a Chair Panther, heavily consider getting rid of this one. It might give you the leg up you need.
The another option that I see that is probably pretty close, but maybe not as prevalent as Death Metal Wonder Woman is Mern. Mernable
Yeah.
target has become kind of a coined phrase in the community. Um, which, if you don't know what that means, Mern gives characters the ability to see through everything if they share a keyword with Mern at the only expense of giving that character +1 defense, which is really, really easy to get around.
He also has police team ability, so you can mitigate that +1 very easily.
Yes, absolutely. He has another ability that is characters within 4 squares, combat values can't be positively modified. Opposing characters can't modify their combat values. But that Mern, if you see that Mern and you look at your figures, and just to name a couple, Cosmic, Soldier, Assassin,
Monster.
Animal, and Monster, yeah. So all those keywords right there, if those apply to you, you need to be really, really careful if you're looking at a sideline options to get rid of, because Mern can turn the entire turn the tables against you. How the turns tables. Sorry, that's an office term. But yeah, Mern, and also your leadership, a great butterfly option offensively too. Precision strike mind control is really, really powerful.
Yeah. So
So
Mern, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. He lets you be more offensive. And he also
yes,
gives your team really solid defense. Like, not being able to modify your combat values, that can hurt. It's weird though, because in a way, I feel like Mern is almost falling out of favor. Like, he definitely still comes in, but I think less so now than previously.
yeah, he's more situational. Death Metal Wonder Woman, like if your team, unless your team is full of giants, Death Metal Wonder Woman benefits you instantly.
Yeah. She is just instantaneous pressure. So
Absolutely.
dealing with a Mern, I mean, I think it's another figure that you're just looking at and saying, like, I need to get rid of this. But attacking him outside of 4 squares is a good way to do it. Having a Mern of your own. The Chair Panther to say you're not coming in. Yeah, there's a handful of ways, but also just preparing yourself defensively for knowing that, all right, I'm probably going to get shot by a Mern or something that shares a keyword with Mern.
Yeah, I think Mern is best dealt with sometimes if uh I don't want to say ignoring, because I don't think ignoring is the correct term.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
He doesn't generate a lot of offense himself.
Mm-hmm.
So at the same time, you can just kill the things around him. But in the event that Mern's coming out, I think today players are primarily looking at the offensive function of him. So to deal with him more effectively today, I would say, is just making sure that you're positioning optimally. Now, granted, they can shoot through everything, so they're going to shoot what they want. So making sure, again, you're considering, like, where am I putting my perplexes in? If I have something like a defend, what am I, looking to defend? Making sure that you're protecting the things that you need or that you think you need to stay alive as much as possible. Because this is kind of an attack that's going to go off. If you combo Murn with something like Rivalry, we can take out the map and the dice from the game. So it's as close to inevitable as you can get.
Yeah,
So with Murn, a lot of it is just, I think, considering what on his team is benefiting the most from it and then probably eliminating that. Murn himself, I suppose, actually doesn't need to die right away. Because at the end of the day, he's an 11 for 2 with Precision Strike.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I think it would be just making sure you have options for your murnable targets to I wouldn't say not be murnable, but to mitigate that as much as you can. Like stuff like Mastermind and stuff like that, pretty good. Things or just keeping them out of range, because even though you can see all those characters with Murn, they still have to be within range to attack. Now, that is, there's ways to getting that up, obviously, but no character right now can just sit on the back and just attack you right now. That's not true. There's a team that we'll talk about that can do that. But
yes.
Sorry, I was thinking more like range.
Yeah, honestly, like right now, just another kind of general analysis. Range is not that prevalent. I think there's some niche players like, Joe Alves out there who's playing Hawkeye, which if he's bringing in Murn, like, I'll just pray for you. Like, you're going to have a tough time. He's going to shoot you, and it's going to hurt. And I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to do against that other than hopefully you go first.
Yeah.
It's a tough pill to swallow. I suppose Beetlejuice is a reasonable option. Limiting free actions is good. But yeah, Murn as a whole, kill the things around him. Other butterfly options, Alec. I think all of these ones are conditional ones, so we don't have to go super in depth. Ace, again, being mentioned for the third time. She shuts off Protected Outwit, has Outwit herself. Also offers you a TK, a Barrier, and a Perplex. So just general utility, all of those powers are fantastic. And if your opponent's running like an Outwit heavy team, or if you just know you need to get rid of something like Kong's Impervious at 200, pretty reasonable option. Major Logan's another one. He is a fun one. I really like him. He gets to come in and say, if we have a figure on the map that shares a name, or if there's two characters that share a name on the board, I get +1 to my rollouts, or to my single D6 rolls. You get -1 to yours. So if they are a rollout heavy team, and you share similarity in characters with them, or maybe they just already have two of the same, he's a great conditional one to come in. Some weaknesses on him, though, is that he does not have any rollouts himself. So he's a little harder to protect at only being a 17 combat reflexes. But again, conditionally, very fantastic. 11 attack, can potentially get some free flurries off. You're probably not risking too much with him. For the most part, you're keeping him alive to once again have leadership and then keep that rollout bonus or single D6 bonus alive for you. So yeah, you can generate a lot of offense with him. And you can also keep yourself pretty safe as well. Next up on that list is Constantine, who just says, all probability control, except for mine, you cannot use. So if you're going into a prob-heavy match where it's like, oh my gosh, my opponent has like 5 of those, he's a reasonable option. Mm-hmm. He's also a precision strike. He's pretty mobile himself. Dies relatively easy, but overall, just a pretty solid figure.
Yeah.
And then, we got to get a little spicy.
Ooh.
A figure that I think is climbing the ranks. And I actually said this on Dial H. I don't even know if this is true anymore. I think people are awake. But I was saying people are sleeping on Caveman Wally West. I think less so now that he can get the +1 longsword for free. But yeah, the phone booth thief, Mr. Wally West, shuts off super senses within 3, has prob, can do a lot of damage himself, but people see that he's only a 10 for 3 and they shy away. I think he's an excellent butterfly option. With how many games? I mean, really think about this, listener. How many games of yours have been decided by super sense rolls? Like specifically super senses. How about shape change? What if I told you this figure can deal with both so effectively, assuming your opponent is getting shape change from the phone booth? We're talking this guy can hypersonic up, yank a phone booth with his super strength, hit you, switch to his Blades Flurry click, drop the phone booth behind him, Blades Flurry you. No super senses and no phone booth. So no shape change potentially.
It's such a solid
That's
plan.
incredible. But also, it's like maybe in a match where, you know, you're not really using him as like this monster offensive threat, you can still get value out of his probability control. And positioning him, he doesn't necessarily need to go make the big attack, but he can set up your big attack by shutting that super sense off. So for your butterfly sideline in 2025, I think heavily consider this figure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's a lot of figures right now that rely on super senses. We're starting to get back into a rollout meta, which was something that kind of took a back seat after Worlds, I would say.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to see it a little bit more now.
Oh, it's so back, baby.
Oh, it's so back. I'm about to roll out of this conversation. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
I like him a lot.
Oh, 100%. He is the fella. Super strength. I think that's one of his most
He can carry your heart-shaped herb.
Yeah.
He can carry your phone booth.
He can hypersonic up.
Put it in your car, your shower, your kitchen.
he can carry you. Yeah, he can carry you to victory, honestly, with super strength. Because you can go through a barrier with that. And you could pick up the barrier train. You just can't use it in the attack, the hypersonic attack. Now, if you want to use it in the second attack, once he gets his free actions, it's a different story. But
no, he loses super strength, so he drops it immediately.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I lied.
So it is a different story, but it's not the story you were alluding to.
That's true. Yeah, I'm sorry. not the same story. Okay, so butterfly overall, you got it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what you can do against a butterfly, considering the options that they have.
If you're specifically worried about butterfly, I just don't think it's a specific worry because he's just on so many teams. So it's less so something of like, okay, how do I answer this? And more so, what am I expecting? Because you should expect butterfly to exist. What am I expecting to see come from this? And if I'm worried about those particular things, what can I play to mitigate that? And right now, one of the only answers is Chair Panther to negate those things from coming in. And the other one would be Despero also to negate an option from coming in. But that doesn't mean I don't think you should really be, if your team, I'll be honest, is like, if I see a Death Metal Wonder Woman, I'm screwed. Oh, I think you have other problems that need to be addressed.
Yes, I agree. And you should never have a I shouldn't say that. You shouldn't ever be equipped for just one matchup. You need to be kind of a nice little spread of everything.
Yeah. Unless you just want to ruin a particular player's day. It's like, I know he's bringing this and I hope we match up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're just have this vendetta against this person and you just know he's going to play 200-point Kong and that's all you want to be, then yeah, go for it. But overall, I would say in general.
I said it's funny.
Oh, yeah, it's funny. The revenge story is real with this one, but
it's like seething out of your mouth as you're foaming as you're walking in the tournament. It's like, what's that guy's deal?
I've waited for this moment for 3 years. I've crafted the perfect team to destroy this person.
And then they crit miss and
crit miss. Oh, yeah. Well, that game's over.
So I think we can pivot into a more specific threat now, Alec. Why don't you take us away with, oh gosh, someone we've already talked about extensively, and that's Miss Yao.
Youch! Yeah, she's gotten a lot better. That's the thing, and she right now on the most used figures for the Champion Clicks Icy Regionals. Now, granted, there are only how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's quite a few events, my bad, under the Icy Clicks Regionals right now. She's number 5 on the most played right now. And she's a pretty relatively new figure. And that's without her, this isn't my final form kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
So we talked about her a little bit on our very first episode, but just in case you don't know, she has leadership, and as long as there's 4 characters without the deity keyword on your force, she takes a maximum of 2 damage from attacks. It's very clear. It's from attacks, and also four or more characters without the deity keyword on your force. This will play a bigger role later on. She has the divine favor trait, which is safeguard, perplex, and opposing probability control. So if she's attacking, you can't problem this. And when Hadari Yao attacks, target characters without the deity keyword modify defense by -1, which for the most part is pretty. There's some people in there with the deity keyword, but I mean he's not the most common keyword in general. The last thing that she has is her special damage power, which she has on clicks 1 through 5, which is improved targeting characters elevated and hindering when Hadari Yao hits multiple characters with a ranged attack. It's with a ranged attack, so if someone tries to do this and they are close attacking you, you can refer them to this. That deals damage. Hit characters dealt less than 3 damage are dealt 3 damage instead. So if you're trying to deal out the damage and stuff like that, you can deal 4 damage to one person, and if you have 2 more people that were hit from the attack, you can assign them 0, which then becomes 3, or 1 and then becomes 3, or 2, and so on and so forth. That's really powerful considering now she has the universal weapon at her disposal, which is an equipment that came out in the Collector's Trove that allows you to pick a standard attack power at the beginning of your turn, which I've 100% of the time you're what? Yeah, Pulse Wave.
Pulse Wave.
Pulse Wave.
Pulse Wave.
Just someone from the back. Pulse Wave, you idiot! Like,
I think I'll take Smoke Cloud.
I'll take Smoke Cloud. Oh my gosh, that -1 attack. I really need that.
You might as well call the universal weapon Universal Smoke Cloud, because that's all people are going to be picking, Alec. In my opinion.
Heck
For
yeah.
anyone who's like truly new to the game, I am joking.
I can't remember the last time I've used Smoke Cloud. It's been such a long time. Anyways, she has Pulse. Now she has access to Pulse Wave. This makes this character, in my opinion, one of the most oppressive offensive pieces in the game. I don't know if you agree with that. I think we have talked about this, but what are your thoughts on that statement real quick?
Oh, it's if we're saying all time, she still probably cracks that list, but definitely not like
yeah.
They're been scarier. But currently, absolutely.
Yes.
So Pulse Wave is kind of the universal answer to everything. And when it's dealing 3 to everybody, oh my gosh, that is so much scarier. Like, so much scarier. So the amount of damage this figure can output while also just kind of inherently being harder to take down. But I do have 2 really cool ways to take her down that we'll talk about soon here.
Yeah.
Hadari Yao Pulse Wave. Be prepared to see that because it will happen to you. So we'll go into just a few things that help her or that can help you take her down. Number 1 is passive damage. So things like Mystics, she only has super senses. Now, granted, Pulse Wave says, I don't care. You don't get team abilities for this. So if she has the universal weapon, sorry, that's not going to do much. Things like Poison, if you base her, that could be nice. Again, though, she can just Pulse Wave you if you're next to her, so it's not as effective as it used to be. But let's go into 3 specific ones. 1, Beetlejuice. No free action, so she can't running shot Pulse Wave you. She has to be stationary to use the Pulse Wave, because the Pulse Wave would be a range as free in tandem with the running shot. So Beetlejuice can bail you out there. And because you get to decide when Beetlejuice leaves and returns, you can kind of conditionally pop him out if you're worried about it. You can spec your team to kind of bring that in when you need to. Number 2, and 3, I want to give a shout out to Emily Rowett, a listener of the show. So 1, thank you for supporting us, Emily. I really appreciate that you kind of just follow everything in the community. That's awesome. But she gave 2 really cool ways to effectively deal with Hadari Yao. I cannot believe we did not talk about this, Alec, but Colossus Prime, his mind control. Like, it just does 5 damage. It's not from an attack.
It's true. Yeah.
So bang, like, she's dead.
Yeah, it's very specifically worded from an attack. So if you have any other source of damage that doesn't come from an attack, I don't know if there's much other things in general, but...
Well, I've got one other one.
All right.
Is pretty nasty. But yeah, Colossus Prime can just go up Mind Controller, make her hit somebody, potentially 3 people for a total of 9 damage, and then she just dies. Like, that's beautiful. I love that. Another thing, so this is not the one that so Emily told me that, and I was like, wow, I feel really stupid for not seeing that. Number two, Mr. Blue Beetle can just erase her on a 5 or a 6, which is nice. But at number
Yes.
three, a Kong. A Kong can actually one-shot a Hadari Yao.
Hmm.
So this is an interesting one. So you can have a piece of elevated in your hand. You can charge up. You can quake and then throw it under her. So you place the elevated under Hadari Yao. You then quake. So quake destroys the elevated. She takes 1 damage. You deal 2 from the quake itself, and then you knock her back and she takes 1 more. So 4 damage. And it's not all happening at once. So it'd be 1, 2, 1, which I thought was particularly interesting.
Oh, so she would be put on the elevated, you would quake, that would get rid of the elevated, she would fall from knockback falling down, or like, like fall
Mm-hmm.
damage, take 2 damage and then get knocked back into a wall. I see your plan.
That's I heard that and I was like, wow, how is Kong even better? But there you go. So some very specific answers to Hadari Yao if you just want to be able to burn through her dial. There you go. But yeah, I also just love the idea of traffic barrel plasticity poison. I think that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Just locking her down, but I think that's a lot less effective now that universal weapon is a thing. Because yeah, she'll just continue to pulse wave you. But hey, something like the old detective Batman from the Batman Noir from the Shifting Focus Batman, just turning off pulse wave, saying you don't get to do that.
Hmm.
That seems reasonable. I'm not going to say that's a great answer, but it is something. So if you can find similar things that can shut it off, that's great. Another thing about Hadari Yao with pulse wave is she will have to get a little bit closer because the pulse wave range is 4. Granted, you can still perplex, but she does have to probably position a little closer. She also has to position away from her team, but granted, again, you're probably just sending her out to do this. Honestly, Alec, this figure is just so overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to say, like, in general, what should you be doing? The Scott Lucas and PJ bystander that gives protected pulse wave, that's reasonable, but that is just a bystander that can also die very easily. So if that is your sole protection, that can also just go away very quickly.
Yeah, it can give you the defense for 1 attack, because
Yeah.
the thing is that Hadari Yao still gets penetrating psychic blast during that pulse wave, so if you don't have any kind of damage reducer or penetrating damage reducer, but you could still have your powers, it's still going to be dealing penetrating, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So if that,
Invincible is a good tool if you can keep it.
absolutely, I agree. I think it's good. Even if it's just for that 1 attack, and that's all you need. You're just like, I just need to survive 1 Hadari Yao alpha.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was just gonna say, and we mentioned this before, but she needs 4 characters or 4 or more non-deity keywords to do damage reduction. So if you do a lot of damage and are able to get rid of those supporting figures, stuff like Shuri is usually on there, Death Metal Wonder Woman, Black Panther Prime. I've seen Miles Morales on there. I don't know, whatever you're running with it. If you can get those characters out of the way, her little 2 damage max thing, that thing just she just melts.
Yeah. I mean, it's very good. Especially, I think it might be more popular now because now that you're giving her the universal weapon, if you play her on her lower dial, she only has sidestep. So you probably do just want the running shot because you're not giving her something like a motorcycle anymore. So 100 points, I think, with the universal weapon being a thing, might be actually more favorable now.
Yeah, that
So I
makes
guess
sense.
preparing for a longer dial Yao would be something to consider.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Um,
This one's nasty, guys. Is this the part of the show where we promote Ghost Rider more, Alec?
this is the part of the show where Ian comes out and sings a Ghost Rider song. I don't know if you get that. That's a Veggie Tales reference. Sorry. um, yeah, Ghost Rider in general, man, again lives in that limbo. Is he good? Is he okay? Is he an attacker? Is he a support? Is he a 70-point support piece? I don't know.
But I feel personally a lot safer if I've got my boys with Invincible or Reduce Pen Impervious sitting next to Ghost Rider saying, go ahead, Pulse Wave me. I'll take 1 damage on everybody. That's not that scary.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will rock you.
Oh,
I will destroy you.
oh, where is my Ghost Rider?
Ghost Rider, I think, I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'm going to say to everybody listening, consider him again. Or maybe consider him for the first time. Because, yeah, Pulse Wave is just so scary. But if you have a Ghost Rider who has a phone booth and everyone's sitting next to him, and they also have, if you have a Colossus next to him or a Man Thing, and now they have Shape Change Invincible, and if the Pulse Wave hits, they're only taking 1. If your opponent invested 110 points and is, I assume, kind of banking on that destroying your team, like they probably have a pretty good slingshot to get her there and to make this happen. That feels pretty good to me, Alec.
Ghost Rider should be considered a little bit more, especially as we're going to be walking into the Pulse Wave Hadari Yao kind of, I wouldn't say meta, because I don't think she's going to define it, but she's definitely probably going to be
She's
very
going to be
heavily
a
played.
nasty part of it.
Oh, absolutely. It might become the Hadari Pulse Wave
So if
meta.
you don't have something like Ghost Rider on your force to protect your powers, which at this time I think is the only thing doing that, unless you just have protected Pulse Wave on whatever power it is that, is protected by that. I think just a general tip is to probably start working out the situations in your head where it's like, okay, if I space my figures out like this, I'm going to give my Hadari, like my opponent who's playing the Hadari out Pulse Wave, I'm going to make them choose, are you going to hit this bunch of figures or that bunch of figures? And when I move my figures apart, how can I converge them later? How can I keep them in a position where I can still get value out of my own stuff? Because typically you want your things close together. The closer they are, usually the more they can benefit. So consider like splitting your team into factions in a way where it's like, okay, how can I mitigate how much damage you're doing in Pulse Wave? And the way you do that is you give her less targets to Pulse Wave. So that's a consideration as well. You have to split your team up potentially and make her go for only half of it as opposed to like the whole thing. And then I think another thing is like map selection can probably be huge. If you can put your team behind things like blocking so that her lines of fire are mitigated, that's also very big. And then another thing is if you're setting up for a pulse wave, your opponent can't really get in close to break these things because then they're going to get pulse wave too. And they definitely don't want to do that. So yeah, your best answer is going to be, and this is something that really we can't just tell you how to do. You have to study your positioning, I think, pretty heavily. If you're specifically looking to answer this, you have to look at your team. And in a similar light to saying, like, what am I okay with dying? You have to really apply that logic here, where it's like, okay, I'll put some of my good stuff here, some of the stuff I'm willing to lose, some of my good stuff here, split them up. And then, yeah, hopefully your opponent, whatever line they take, whatever like half of your team they hit, hopefully you have the answers in the half that they didn't to deal with that Hadari Yao. But that is, there's so many variables in that. You can't break that down just as a general thing. So
Yeah.
that's something where it's like you have to get specific with not just your building, but what are you doing in these situations? Because this is an answer. This is so much damage that gets around everything. And unless you're playing a specific counter, quote unquote, like Ghost Rider, it's really hard for me to just give you a band-aid to put over this because, oh, you're bleeding too much.
You bleeding. What's the quote from Predator? I ain't got time to bleed.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Yeah.
That is that what you're looking for?
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah, no one makes me bleed my own blood. That's right. Forgot about, yeah. But
Little dodgeball
little
in
dodgeball.
2025.
You can dodge a Hadari. You can dodge a ball. Is that the quote? I don't know. If you can dodge
I
a
think
wrench, you can
so,
dodge a
yeah.
Hadari.
If you can dodge a Hadari pulse wave, your opponent probably crit missed.
That's also true. Yeah, Hadari Yao, very, very powerful. Probably gonna. I think she will probably overthrow Kong. She's in the top 5 right now in the Icy Clicks, Champion Clicks
It's
Icy
hard to
Regionals.
say because she's less accessible than Kong.
She is. She's so expensive. Oh my word!
Yeah.
That's why I've never thought about building with her. She's just way too expensive for me, at least. If you want to go buy her or you already have her, that's totally
No.
fine. But
I mean, something like Arachnite, bust out the dollars for. Hadari Yao, who is this? I know who it is. It's Storm. But like the character, I have to like the character to spend money like that. And even then, it's like, I don't think I'm spending money like that.
oh yeah, I agree.
On one figure, I did for Arachnite.
I
But even then, that was not anywhere on the level of like, Hadari Yao is like $250. This is a character where I think if you are particularly worried about it, you're not looking for general strategy. You have to look at like specific answers. And that's things like that Colossus Mind Control, the little Kong combo, protecting yourself with Ghost Rider, finding ways to deal damage outside of attacks to get around her trait. Like Alec said, getting rid of the figures around her. At the same time, though, it's like if you let this figure live, if you get pulse waves twice by this figure, like I think the game is just over.
yes, 100%. That's the other thing, right? If you don't have an answer for a 3 damage pulse wave, like if you don't have deep enough clicks, if you don't have characters that can survive that, or even survive a 3 damage pulse wave with knockback, it's so possible. Rolling double 4s, double 5s, double 3s, even with the 12 or 13 attack that she might have at the minimum. And you are not probbing that. Even if you have the range on her, you're not probbing
Even
that
if you're
thing.
outside the pulse wave, you're still not probbing it because her trait.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
This is a character that requires specific answers. So if you are not playing one of those specific answers, make sure you are hitting the map hard, doing your studying, and positioning in a way that not counters the pulse wave, but minimizes its effectiveness, because chances are your opponent will have a way to get it off.
Man, I almost said like there's ways to barrier yourself in, but there's really not anymore. We don't have a universal 10-point barrier item like we used to.
Well, there is the dream item for 15 points that gives barrier now.
Right. Yeah, I haven't really super looked at those, but yes, I forgot about that. Is it shape change and barrier that it gives you?
Yeah, shape change barrier, 15 points. If you already have shape change, you also get to deal your printed damage if you successfully shape change out of it. That could be kind of fun on Ghost Rider.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Probably not very good, but could.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's terrible. Deal the attacker damage equal to. Okay, yeah, wow. Well, that's also not from an attack, so I don't know how the wording would be on that, but that would be just 4 damage right back to Hadari Yao.
Yeah, I love that.
That's okay.
We like play it? Probably not. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think this combo is going to be good enough and potentially prevalent enough to where Ghost Rider, I think his stock goes up. I know we keep coming back to this guy.
Oh yeah.
But man, like there's no direct counter to this, guys. It's something that you really have to look at your team and decide, how am I mitigating it?
Mm-hmm.
And that can be through barrier, that can be through positioning, splitting your team up. Just really, really think about, if I'm going second against this force, what is my like exact positioning? What am I doing here? Because you'll get to pick the map in that instance. So you can pick out the map that you want to study on. But that is an example of, if you are worried about this, and I think you should be, you need to be playing specifically. So yeah, no general answers here, unless you're playing one of those specific things, one of the counters, quote unquote. So yeah, sorry that we don't have more here. She's scary.
Yeah, but again, we said this at the beginning, but if you have an answer and you're like, hey, I've been playing against Hadari Yao since the day I was born, and I know exactly what is the best kind of counter and strategy, let us know. We'd love to hear.
Why are you listening to us?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why are you listening to us?
Yeah, get out of here. Host your own show.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, Hadari Yao, we're gonna see her. It's gonna be crazy. Do you want to talk about real quick some sideline things that we're gonna start seeing here soon? Or let's talk about Man Thing. Yeah, that's a good thing. Let's talk about Man Thing.
just Man-Thing we don't have to go super in depth on, but this is a figure that I think is becoming more and more just prevalent based on a lot of what we've already talked about, so we won't hit on those same points. He's got a full dial of invincible, poison. He's very mobile. He enables things like Poison Ivy and Swamp Thing because he places plants. Uh, he's a 21 up close with his combat reflexes and 19 defense. His stats are just absurd for his point cost. He's Mystics. He's got the super strength, so he's got added utility there. He's a giant, so he has 3 through 6 willpower. You can give him Gaia. You can give him Chthon. It's something, yes, he's only 5 clicks, but he is a figure that your opponent has to deal with. And if they don't, he will continue hurting your opponent. Now, he is outwittable, so he's not impossible to take down. Typically, how it goes with Man-Thing is that when he goes in, if your opponent, I think, is smart, they will focus him and get him off the map. Like, get rid of your invincible, and then they're off to the races. They're going to take him out. He's only 5 clicks, so usually you can do it in 1 or 2 attacks, and that's 55 points. That goes back to the point earlier in the show where Man-Thing is an easy character who creates tempo, but he's also a character that can lose you tempo if you just throw him out there. Because if your opponent sees that opportunity to take him out, which, again, I don't think is particularly difficult, but at the same time, it's not easy. Like, you do have to do specific things. You know, you probably have to base him to outwit him because of his stealth. If he has Gaia, he's always in hindering. So making sure when you're playing against Man-Thing, if you're going to let him attack, it's like you're sponging up that damage with the correct character. And when he goes in, you need to get rid of him. Do not let Man-Thing go again. This guy is a 12 for 4 with penetrating damage. He can pick up objects, beat you over the head with it for like 6 or 7. So Man-Thing, I think, is another person who creates a lot of pressure, and you need to be aware of that. And also just aware of, you can take him out easily. Don't be shied away by, it's like, okay, I'm going to have to roll like a 7 or an 8. You got to go. You have to kill this guy.
Yes, 100%. He can wreak so much damage on you in terms of just like his penetrating and stuff like that. Giant Reach too, something that's kind of sometimes overlooked, but he can just like look over the character that's trying to base him and just be like, yeah, I'm just going to attack the person right there behind you. But he also has that traded steel energy as long with Gaia, so his sustain is very, very tough to get around. Especially if they're running Chthon. It doesn't really matter that he's running Chthon at that point when he heals at the beginning of the turn and also during his attack.
When he dies, he's going to go out. It's going to happen in 1 turn.
Yes.
It's got to happen in 1 turn. If this guy continues to give value, oh my gosh. So he is a figure that you don't necessarily need to worry about right out of the gates, but when he puts himself in a position where you can attack him, I think you should be. Because he has points that you can score, and you can take a lot of pressure off the board when you do. Maybe not your first worry, but you should be worrying about him.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that if you see a Man-Thing, you need to be really worried. One of the things that I see Man-Thing on a lot is he is a scientist, so he is usually like the bodyguard for the like Swamp Thing, Man-Thing, Poison Ivy builds.
Yes.
And honestly, we've been seeing a lot of those with Swamp Thing Prime on it too, without running any Black Lanterns. I've seen a couple teams run that now. So very, very possible that you can.
This setup, like with the Swamp Thing, Man-Thing, Poison Ivy, and then the Prime Swamp Thing, can 1 turn just about anything in the game. The reason being is the Black Lantern Swamp Thing Prime, when he puts a grave marker under you, you can use your powers, but you can't reduce damage. So this gets around Ghost Rider even. If a grave marker's under Ghost Rider, you can keep your invincible, it just doesn't do anything. Because you cannot reduce, keep your powers all you want. Another thing that this team does is that not only is it like hyper mobile in itself, like it's very good at just, if it needs to, getting across the board and hitting you. It also just places plants. Poison Ivy has the ability to attack through those plants and trigger things like the trick arrows through those plants. Swamp Thing can make free attacks through the plants. Man-Thing just gets to place, is it 3 or 4 at the beginning of the game?
4, I believe.
3. 4? Why can't I remember? Either way, this thing generates plants like crazy. So Man
Mm-hmm.
Thing gets to start the game generating those anywhere on the board. Poison Ivy can then generate them 4 away from any plant marker. Swamp Thing can also generate them himself, so they can cover the board in that. And then if you position your Black Lantern Prime Swamp Thing correctly, he can just throw a grave token under anything and nuke it. So a
Oh,
300-point Kong, there goes your Impervious. And now I'm going to hit you for like 15 damage with all of my attackers. Things like this becoming more prevalent is another example of why I think 200-point Kong loses favor. But yeah, this team can also just burn through a Colossus. It's relatively defensive. A lot of these things are not particularly easy to hit. It has a decent amount of probability control on it from like the support figures you play around it.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, the scientist themes, the plant teams, I think are something. We could go really in depth on this, but the basic thing is, how are you going to base this team? Because if you do not do anything, if you play the game of like, well, I'll just sit here, they will eat you alive. They will throw plants under you, and you're gonna never want to see a plant again. They will burn you.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things to look for, in my opinion, is number one, this team loves maps like Brock's Bunker. Like they will be going to that every day of the week if they can. So
Yeah, the harder it is for you to get to them, the easier it is for them to get value.
absolutely. So I think one of the big things to counter this team in general is just running maps that, at least a map maybe that's outdoor or something that you can get around, easy to traverse. Because even
Mm-hmm.
with like traffic barrel and stuff like that, as long as you can get rid of plant mark, I would not suggest targeting plant markers, like quaking them or getting rid of them, because they can make plant markers faster than you can probably get rid of them. I think it's safe to say. The swamp things and man things are murnable targets, so if you have a murn option, that's something you can do. You could one thing that I would do personally is, a very common scientist on this team also is Predagaton, and we haven't talked to him about him a ton, but he should be mentioned in general. But he is able to um, be murned as well with the soldier team ability. If you have Murn on your team or an option to butterfly into Murn, and you have a very not a lot, maybe some range and stuff like that, I would just choose a Murnable target and attack them, and then you could just pop a too dangerous arrow and then deal 3 damage to people around them. 3 damage and knockback on top of that. That gets rid of. It doesn't
A lot
KO.
of stuff.
Yes, it doesn't KO everything, but like stuff like Poison Ivy, the smaller stuff, per Degaton. Um, if they're running 2 Poison Ivies, the 1, 2, 3 damage puts them on last click, and then knockback will KO them. So, and that passive poison damage from the plant markers, honestly, sometimes is the final nail in the coffin, excuse me, for some of your characters, because most characters on last click usually have something like super senses or regeneration or something like that. So that last poison is usually what does it for them.
And Predagaton in general, just quickly on him,
Yeah.
every team you build, because this guy is only 20 points, you should consider, okay, if so at the beginning of the game, he gets to pick one of your figures and place it anywhere in your starting area. So if your team relies on one guy carrying over your whole team, your opponent can just throw him in the corner of the map.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing in that situation? Be mindful of, if you're opening positioning, like if you're like, oh, I'm locked in here. If I have my formation just like this, I'm good to go. Just be mindful that you may be taking an action to move that character back into position, because Predagaton just gets to pick him up, put him wherever. So that's the big note on Predagaton. Also, pretty much any team you build, if you have 20 points and you're not in theme, yeah, probably consider him. I mean, TK, prob, all his bells and whistles, he's a sidestep, he's a leadership, blah, 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 blah. I'm so sick of talking about this figure. Don't like him.
He's a fella, that's for
In
sure.
that, for day one, he's a fella. Not a particularly nice fella, but yeah, just in general, make sure you are considering, what does my team look like if this gets repositioned? What am I doing in the event of that? Because 99% that will happen to you at least once if you play into a tournament.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you need to assess your characters that and spread them out so that if your main attacker gets thrown to the wayside, you have an option or at least some type of idea to get them back into the game as quickly as
Mhm.
possible. Because if they put you on the bunker and they put you in that first elevation, man, that is such a tough position. If you don't have an answer for that, Predagaton is a really good answer for that because he can just move through walls and he can carry people. But if you don't have an option like that, man, it is hard to come back from that. I know you kind of already said this, but I just really want to reiterate.
It sucks.
It does. It's the worst. I hate getting Dagaton, bro. Um,
Man, when you're getting Degatoned, oh my gosh. Ow.
Another thing to remember that if you attack Dagaton and you miss your attack on Dagaton, you get dealt 1 penetrating damage, and that is protected pulse wave. So if you miss your, that's something that a lot of people forget that he does for 20 points. I mean, he's already doing so much. He's prob, he's messing up your game state at the beginning of your turn, and then now on top of all that, if you miss him, you are dealt 1 penetrating damage. Penetrating damage, by the way.
Another point for Ghost Rider.
Another point for Ghost Rider.
Park this guy next to Ghost Rider.
Park the side next to Ghost Rider. Roll out your senses and stuff like that. You get your shape change, and now you got your super senses on top of all that. If they miss them,
the whole point of this episode, we kind of lied to you guys. We said that this was the Gauntlet preparation. It's actually secret propaganda to play Ghost Rider.
play Ghost Rider, guys.
Play him. Make him work. Make us proud. If you win Florida with Ghost Rider,
Ooh,
mm,
you'll go on Dial H. That's good.
what will I do? If you message us and say I'm gonna try and win Florida with Ghost Rider, and then you actually do, I will figure something out. I don't know what it is. I don't have anything off the top of my head, but we'll make it a grand experience. I'd love if that happened.
Oh, absolutely. Well, number one, I think the most obvious thing is you'll jump on the podcast with us for sure.
Yeah.
100%. But then, yeah, Ian will figure out something. I don't.
We'll give you that previously mentioned Barrett 50 cal that shoots dice.
The Barrett 50 cal. That's right. The 50 cal. Yes,
And
I
me
agree.
saying it on a podcast, this is legally binding. I can't get out of this. I have to give it to you.
What have you done? What have I done?
Well, I think we can just hit some sideline elements, kind of wrap up, and hopefully you guys have a better idea. So rivalry, if you don't know what that does, if you're still under that rock, it guarantees a hit. So what are you doing against that? You're either removing it with Black Panther or Despero, or you're accepting that it's going to happen. Any other thoughts on that one, Alec?
Yeah, cover up your characters that can be rivaled. The stipulation is it has to be a single target and it has to share a keyword with the character attacking. So if you do your best to kind of fortify that, you're
Fortify, you say.
yeah. Oh wait, yeah, fortify.
Yeah.
And sorry, which is also another great option against a rivalry attack. And fortify is in these are both in the play at home kits for the collector's trove. One is in the rivalries and Gamoras and Nebulas, and then the other one is it Fortify? You said Fortify is in the other one, right?
Yeah, Fortify is the other one.
I don't know what's in that starter pack, but I know that it's Fortify and rivalry. And Fortify says when a friendly character would take 4 or more damage after reducers, you may have them take 1 damage instead.
It's very good.
It is.
That's a very good way to say your rivalry attack doesn't matter that much to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a lot of people kind of, including myself, have kind of really pumped up just how good rivalry is. And I have been informed through several judges that rivalry does in fact get past, I should say, mastermind and super senses. And I know that I think some people were like, yeah, well, yeah, duh, that's common sense. But the wording, the attack becomes hit versus the target becomes hit is a little confusing sometimes, but it does in fact get around super senses and mastermind as far as I'm concerned.
So yeah, there's all this talk about rivalries. So you have to mention Fortify in the same breath, which I don't think has happened. And yeah, I mean, honestly, both of these just feel like auto includes.
I agree.
Like They are very, very, very good. I think Fortify less so than Rivalry, because typically offense, to go back to the conversation of tempo, if you're setting the pace, typically you are in a better position than if you're reacting to the pace. Obviously, there's specific builds that look to do that, but I think in general, typically you want to be the one calling the shots, making the actions. So yeah, Rivalry and Fortify, there honestly isn't much to say about it other than they are here to stay. They're very scary and they're guarantees.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a guaranteed hit, and this is a guaranteed reduction given the guidelines are met. Beetlejuice, we've talked about enough. You guys can listen to other shows on that. Just be prepared. What are you doing when you don't have reactions?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to be in that situation, hit up old eBay, get yourself a Chair Panther. Another one that's new that Alec, I know you're pretty big on.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about is Mimic, which I'm surprised because I'll be honest, prior to the show, I looked at him, I was like, oh, that's so cool looking, but I really did not think about his applicability as a sideline element.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for instance, Mimic is really. I think Mimic is really, really good in the instance of that because there's so many objects being played right now. Nifty Traffic Barrel, Heart Shaped Herb, Vibranium, Machine. I don't know. I can go on and on.
Hello, wake up.
Hello, wake up. There's so much of this stuff being played right now. And the best option is, well, what if there was an element in the game that just got rid of it? Enter the Mimic. He's a sideline active. He's free on your sideline, number one. If the Mimic is on your sideline when an opposing character would pick up a terrain marker, which, just so we're clear, terrain marker is everything that's under, like, that's special objects, that's equipment, that's actual terrain markers, that's effect terrains. That it covers such a wide variety, and it's such a blanket term.
He's an all-terrain vehicle, okay, as far as we're concerned.
All-terrain vehicle, yes, absolutely.
Mimic sports best-in-class torque, four-wheel drive, and won the JD Power Award in 2021, 22, 23, and 24.
MSRP $29.99. Get your hands on him right now.
Come on down to the Another Heroclix podcast dealership. We'll hook you up with the Mimic that's right for you.
That's right. That's right. I love that. If someone were to pick up a marker or an equipment or equipped an equipment it's holding or in a square of, I love that wording. You may roll a d20. On a 1, it's a critical fail and you remove the Mimic from the game without scoring it. But this is the big thing. On a 10 or higher, so this is a 55% chance or higher, I believe. He instead immediately end the character's action without any effect. Remove the terrain marker from the game.
Crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah. Ending.
That's so good.
It's a turn ender. There's not many things that end a turn. Failing breakaways and now Mimic. It's crazy. And this is a better percentage.
Well, not turn ender, action ender.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Action ender. There's only one turn ender in the game. I think that's the Beholder. But yeah, action ender. Oh, man. This is crazy. And then you put.
And so one thing that we should point out is when he comes out, unless you roll that 20, you are just going to give up 15 points. So it's not necessarily something you want to do right away, unless it's like really crucial to deny this thing. If people are going to go pick up a traffic barrel and we're on Brock's bunker, and I know that's going to inhibit my ability to get next to them, it's probably worth it to risk that 15 points to bring this Mimic in.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. That's what I would save my rolls for. I would be very, very systematic with how I roll that D20.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nifty Traffic Barrel, Mimic ends your action, and then the Nifty Traffic Barrel gets removed from the game, so it does get scored. You get the 5 points, and it might be 5 for 15 points, which isn't in your favor, but the utility that you get from losing that opposing Nifty Traffic Barrel is so much bigger in the grand scheme, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think given the correct situation, absolutely. So Mimic, if you got, honestly, that box set, like the +1 longsword and the Mimic, I think it's a must own.
Oh yeah,
So,
I love that
yeah.
Displacer Beast too. It's not amazing, but
Very cool looking.
100%. And obviously Mimic is awesome, and the +1 is a +1 longsword or broadsword.
+1 longsword, yeah.
Yeah, that thing is bananas.
Very good with another sleeper pick, but again, I think people are waking up to it. The caveman Wally West, he gets it for free because he has the warrior keyword.
Caveman Wally woke.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Caveman Wally.
Let me just run this situation through your head really quick. So say you need to make a phone call and it's like 30 years ago and you go to a phone booth, right? And you pick up that phone and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna call this person. And then all of a sudden there's a chest with teeth on your head. Welcome to the Mimic Meta. My name is Ian Eckerson, and we'll be talking for another 2 hours
About the mimic.
about the best in class JD Power Award Mimic.
$29.99 MSRP. Remember that.
We'll get you a Mimic that's right for you.
We'll
get
you a mimic that's right for you. Oh man, I love
you
that.
have a customer get in a car and it turns into
Oh my gosh.
What kind of dealership is this? Not the right one.
Not the right one.
Very bad one with a lot of lawsuits.
I'm gonna be honest, there's a 50% chance of that happening, and man, you must be lucky, man. That
I do have to have you sign this liability waiver before you get in the vehicle, as there is a actually favorable chance that this is going to turn into a treasure chest with teeth.
Yeah. Regardless, I get my commission, but you still need to sign this.
Yeah. commission. So Mimic, yeah, that's a new thing to the game.
Yes.
Definitely look at that. I think the last sideline thing I want to mention is shield throw. This basically turns anyone into a Hadari Yao for 5 points. Like you get to triple target, do 3 damage to everything you hit for 5 points when you flip this. Also gives you a minimum range value. And you can just use it with any character at any point. Situationally amazing. And the situations it's good in is a lot of situations. I mean, my gosh, like you could take a character with 0 damage and just rip a bunch of people. So
yeah, I'm reading.
Yeah,
sorry,
I really like it.
I'm not super. I know it. I know what kind of it does. I just had to read it one more time. But equipped friendly characters. Equipped friendly characters have range 3 targets. Okay, yeah, that's. Oh yeah. Okay, I see your value. That's really good.
Damage, deal each hit character 3 damage, and you get a minimum range 4, so like anyone can take advantage of this. So just a big attack equipped character, you know, like your Chair Panther that's just sitting there. Maybe he has something equipped to him. Maybe he's got the universal weapon to give him like TK.
Yeah.
Somebody like Mern now has more value, where it's like, yeah, he's only an 11-2 precision strike, but if he's equipped now, he can flip that, and all of a sudden, like, you can turn any equipped character into a massive team threat for 5 points. So I really like this. I think it's worth mentioning. A quick shout out to Pim Particles as well. I think against the other one-shots, don't love it as much as I thought I did. I thought everyone on your team got to do it. It's just one person. But getting a nice defense bump if you're going against a ranged attack, you get to tiny size and +1 your defense. That's pretty cool. Some of the Darkhold one shots, I think they're good. Let's be clear on that. But I think that they're going to play into specific strategies. That's not really what we're going for this episode. So if you're mad at us for skipping those over, they're good. Let us know what you're doing with them. So sideline, there's obviously more things we could talk about, but I think these are the things that, be prepared for, and then also maybe consider taking advantage of yourself. So we've got 2 more things, Alec. We'll start with Mr. Brock's bunker, his map. We've already talked about it enough.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you're going to specifically plan for anything in this game, it is how to play on this map. And you're going to want to know this for when your opponent picks it and for when you yourself want to pick it. This is the most restrictive map to move through. It gives you the best chance defensively, and pair this with things like the traffic barrel. It is just so easy, if you don't know what you're doing, to get locked out of a match. So if your team in particular that you're building is struggling to move on this map, do your homework, find the best ways that you can move on this map, and find the kind of pressure points that you can maybe put your opponent in by the positioning you do to take advantage of this map as well. Because 100%, if you go to a tournament, you will find yourself on this map at least once.
Yeah, I would say one thing real quick, just about this map. If you number one, they are selling it now on the Rock website. It is currently at this time at this time right now, it is out of stock because it's sold out like crazy, which makes sense. But they are selling it on the Rock website. So just keep your eyes open if you are like, I have no way of getting this map. There is now a little bit more availability on this map. So number two, real quick, if you see that they have no opening or no alpha or no like you have no murderable targets or they don't have a murn or anything like that, I will say that in the if you looking at the map at A1 right here on the top left corner, that's A1. If you put a machine or some type of blocking terrains in the C5, D5, and C6 right there, and you have like a traffic barrel or something, that little corner room, that A4 through D4 square right there, that's a really good defensive position. There's really no way you can get in there without some type of like super strength or wasting an action to destroy that blocking terrain. But
Yep. You can create, again, so much tempo by doing that, like having a
yes,
defensive shell, making your opponent expend actions to do what they want to do is generally very good. And so if you put them in that position where now they're expending more than they'd like to do what would maybe be half of their turn on an open map, that's their full turn now. Yeah, these are your best defensive odds. This is the best defensive map in the game.
oh yeah,
Honestly, maybe you could just flat out say like the best map in the game for like going second at a minimum.
mm-hmm.
It gives you the best odds to stay alive. So again, I don't know if there's like massive tips from us other than if you're going to practice positioning, make sure 100% that you are doing it on this map.
Yeah. If you're not experienced with this map and you just this is the first time that it's played in front of you, I would definitely choose. And you're choosing side. I would choose east to west versus going north to south. It's just that is way too hard to try and traverse that. So
Yeah.
yeah, Major Brock's bunker. Be on the lookout for it, and make sure you have some
Yeah.
type of
Just
plan.
be aware. Plan your team out on that map.
Beware the bunker.
Closing out. So we have mentioned some elements that haven't really been played yet. We have mentioned some stuff from Collector's Trove, but it is hard to establish a figure as a Gauntlet figure unless they're just a standout like Hadari. Like everyone knew you're going to have to play to beat this character when her dot was previewed. I don't know if there's necessarily anything in Collector's Trove on the level of like Hadari Yao or Kong or Colossus, but there is one figure that I do just want to highlight because I love him. And I already said it on Dial H. I said Ulysses Bloodstone would win Florida.
Ooh,
And I think I also said he'd win Adepticon.
you did. I didn't listen to the full episode. I didn't hear you say that part.
So I'm already, but what's the fun in making safe predictions? Ulysses Bloodstone, I think, is 100%. I will say, like, this is a figure that you need to know how to deal with, especially if they are building specifically around this character. I have messed around with this a lot, so this is all personal take. There's no tournament data backing up what I'm saying, but I think he's the truth. This guy is so crazy. Between his wild card and super senses, so very easy to make him a 4 through 6 senses with just copying from somebody like, say, Death Metal Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Steal that Wonder Woman team ability. In addition, with his ridiculous regeneration trait, which allows seriously, this is wild, a 3 through 5, you only take 1 unavoidable from attacks. A 6, you heal 1. You play him with something like Kevin, he can re-roll it. You play him with something like Major Logan, he has +1 to that, in addition to his senses. And on top of this character is a charged flurry piece with precision outwit, great keywords, deals with so many things, gets +1 attack and damage against monsters, and after he flurries, he's just doing additional damage to something within range that he hasn't hit. The sustain and damage output of this figure is crazy. The only knock I really have against him is his mobility. His short dial doesn't bother me. Like, it's such a monumental task, I think, for your opponent to be like, all right, I'm going to risk it all and try to burn through your Ulysses. Unless they have something like a Hadari Yao Pulse Wave. That hurts him quite a bit. But the thing is you also get like a free Bloodstone with him, And you don't even have to give him that free bloodstone, which is so wild to say. You can give him other things, and he's amazing with it. Like so many other things. He's mystical, so you can Chthon him. Don't know if I love that again, but if you want him to be a bigger stat monster, that's an option. Things like the motorcycle are great on him. Things like the power, or not the power gem, the crimson gem. That's great on him too. They're like the utility this figure has, the offense and defense he does. And just the fact that he gets bonuses for scoring points and dealing damage and hitting against monsters. I really love this figure. I think he will be an absolute menace. And I think in the future, if we do another one of these podcasts,
Yeah.
Ulysses, in my opinion, will be a figure that will be talked about as you need to have an answer to deal with him.
I agree.
I love him. Maybe I'm too high on him. That's why we didn't do a big deep dive like the other characters we've talked about. But yeah, Ulysses, he's the man. I hope he wins Florida.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's really, really powerful. I think if you're going to run Chthon on him, you have to have some type of answer for him to mitigate that damage, because on a character that really relies on having his clicks in general, he is 5 clicks long and that's fine, but when that's all he has, and he's rolling was it 3 through 6 to basically live for the most part, on top of his super senses, you really want to keep his health as healthy as possible.
Also, I don't love Chthon on him either, because I know the Bloodstone is going to be played by other people.
Yeah.
So mitigating my healing while I'm damaging every time I'm taking an action.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think Chthon is the play on him, but if you're just going for like all out offense, just trying to burn through somebody, I can see it. I just think in general, probably stay away from it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, especially with the Bloodstone, that makes a really solid case. He can get buffs other ways other than Chthon. But he also
Bucky's arm.
Bucky's
Why
arm.
not?
Bucky's arm.
What, or the longsword, give him blades and CC and +1 damage when he blades. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so many good equips.
Martial artist too. You could also put a tomb if you really want to on him. Make him do penetrating damage in 6 range.
Every time he attacks, he's taking 1 damage. So I also don't love that, because then he flurries and takes 2 damage.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next that. Nope. Sorry.
Do it though. You could do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You can.
If you want to go for that all-out offense, if you want pen damage, precision strike, if you have another way to buff his stats, it's not completely unreasonable.
Yeah.
I just don't think generally it's what you're going to do with him.
He's a good Ares bomb too. Ares bomb plus pin particle, or pin particles plus Ares bomb is always a good solid option. He's trade blades. He gets an extra 10 points, extra 10 victory points for a monster he KOs. Yeah, Ulysses. This is more of a
This is a prediction.
Yeah, character radar. Like, keep him on your radar. We have no absolute knowledge or any data on him yet, except through practice and speculation. But he could prove to be a very, very powerful character.
I think he's going to. I think he's going to be on people's radar soon enough. And then I guess just the little cherry on top is I hope that Ultra Chase Collector is also good enough to be part of the Gauntlet.
Yeah.
You have to know how to beat him. But in reality, I think he'll be more so a limiter, where it's like, hey, you probably shouldn't specifically play this because he can just, and eventually one-shot you. I think Collector also is another thing that plays into discussion from earlier. Things like 200-point Kong in 7 turns. If I stack enough tokens on you, I just get to delete you from the map. So all I have to do is stay alive. You have to kill me. One of those things I think is easier to do, and that's the staying alive part.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Collector's definitely, especially of the stuff that we've seen, or well, actually no, all of it's been seen, but in terms of the new stuff that's out, I would say he's up there.
I hope he is.
I hope so too. He's a cool little 200-point figure.
That's I think a pretty current, up-to-date Gauntlet. If you guys think we missed a figure, please let us know. If you think there's something so wildly prevalent that you need to prepare for it with every team you build, Yeah, please let us know if we miss something. If there's something in your gauntlet that you just have a personal vendetta against, let us know about that too. If there's just something you hate where it's like, if I see this, I have to beat it. I want to hear about that. What's your vendetta out there? What do you look to stomp out?
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, we're totally open to hearing your thoughts. We want to know your thoughts and we want to hear what you have to say. Um, because maybe we're totally missing something. Maybe we're too, the blinders are so on right now. We just don't see what's like under our noses, right? The best detectives, that's what they say. Like the answer was right over our noses the whole time. So
Yeah. I
very,
feel like we're I feel like there might be one.
oh yeah,
There might be one thing you're missing. I
Ab-
mean, we could just do some quick honorable mentions. Green Man, I don't think you need to like spec against him specifically or worry about him. Very good figure.
abs-
Black Panther Prime. Yeah, like if you play against him, you should know how he works, but I don't think he's part of the gauntlet yet. I think he's more so existing on the fringe.
mm-hmm.
Daredevil, another piece that can be really annoying, but again, you just kind of have to either play the ignore game or just look to get rid of him. Uh, it's a bit of a toss up there. He's just such cheap points. He's a very effective figure. I obviously love him. If you guys listen to anything I do, you're aware of that. So I'm not purposely leaving him off. Just probably not part of the gauntlet. Reverse Flash, I think not really a specific thing you need to answer. He's just again a very good figure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I guess one. But this also feels very specific is like Jennifer Kale.
Mm.
Like knowing what to do when you don't have modifiers. Most of the time, the answer there is take the shot. Hopefully, it hits. It's a dice game. Sometimes you got to roll them big.
Yeah, if you're running a Kale and or if you're running against a Kale and it's a Man Thing Kale team up, which if you're running Kale, you probably should be running Man Thing, just so we're
I agree
clear.
with that.
Uh, Big Arrow or Big Arrow gets rid of Kale because even though Man Thing becomes the target of the attack, the too dangerous, sorry, not Big Arrow, too dangerous arrow can just say, all right, well, 3 damage to Kale anyways, sorry. So,
Yeah.
for me personally, some things I feel like you should definitely be on the lookout for is the stray camo teams. They are very powerful still, and they could show up and just wreck your World of Sunder. In my opinion, I think camo is still really
Yeah.
good, very hyper
Trick
mobile.
arrows there become, yeah. Trick arrows just kind of erase him.
It's true, yeah. If you don't have any type of trick arrows, then yeah, camo kind of
He can
yes.
hurt.
Oh, 100%.
Also, Fortify existing makes me like him less because his big attack, it's like, just kidding, I'm taking one.
See ya, yeah.
Whereas Colossus just gets around Fortify because it's like, well, it's not damage from an attack.
True, yeah. Okay, so that is yes, I totally agree with that. Jefferson.
Let me make sure that's right. No, it's literally just when a friendly character would take 4 or more damage.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
fine. I thought it was from an attack. Nix that.
So it does trigger on Colossus then.
Dang, so people can fortify their Hadari Yaos? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because I don't know if those are protected pulse wave. I don't know if you can use them during pulse wave. I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't see why not. But the pulse wave isn't going to do 4 damage.
That's
well, I guess if
true.
they're knocked
Yeah, or a critical hit. Yeah, that makes sense.
a critical hit, sure. Well, no, because knockback would be take the damage and then knockback, so that's not 4.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so it have to be a critical hit pulse wave, which the odds of that happening are, in my opinion, very slim.
That's the only reason you should run Fortify is if you get critically hit by a Darial Pulse Wave. You heard it here first from Alec. Alec said that.
I did. Critical hit pulse waves are the new meta. It's going to run all over the place, and we're going to see a lot of them moving forward. Unless you're Lucas Van Hollen. In that case, you're going to see a lot of critical miss pulse waves.
He runs it's a bit of an anti-meta strategy called the crit miss pulse wave.
Anti-meta strategy. I love that.
It's a Van Hollen signature.
The Van Hollen signature. We love you, Lucas. King Jefferson, in my opinion, is another figure that you got to be prepared for. His trait that says you can't use super strength, flight, or the Superman team ability within 7 squares of your starting area. If they're within 7 squares of your starting area. Also, the Jefferson bomb is very much a thing that you can do. I would say he's up there too with camo. Not super seen a ton. And also we've said this character quite a few times, but this is one of my favorite characters in the game right now still. Blue Beetle. He could just erase your characters from existence if you don't have some type of answer for it. He's got terrible keywords, armor, mystical, pretty relevant, but Teen Titans and armor, you don't see a ton of. He's got mystical team ability. He can choose. He has pick a power. He has erase a power, and then he also has like prob on his top dial. He's a prime, so slotting him's a little bit harder. But other than that,
Yeah.
pretty hard. I mean, he's not terribly hard to get rid of, but
Fortify definitely pushes him more into the meta because I think people's biggest gripe with him is that he dies too easily.
oh yeah, that makes sense.
So Fortify is definitely it's a good friend to everyone, but it's a very good friend to him.
Yes, I agree because he has invulnerability and then super senses on his last three. So his defensive output is really bad. And I personally don't love I know people love the motorcycle on him. I personally am not a fan. But
Trick arrows.
yeah, trick arrows 100% of the way. You want to make him as offensively as possible. Blue Beetle with trick arrows takes care of a lot of things that we have talked about, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
those are my honorable mentions.
I love it. I love this game. I love when the meta gets shaken up. So I hope that through this, maybe you can build a team that can answer these things, that you feel comfortable playing, and that you feel like you have a good shot against the big bads, and you can surprise the meta a bit. Maybe you can build your own meta. Maybe you build a team so good that's so off the radar that we'll be talking about it in the next Gauntlet episode, whenever that occurs.
Absolutely, man. I'm so excited for this right now state of 300 modern. I think that it's really, really healthy, even though there's a lot of figures that we've kind of been like, oh yeah, this figure is definitely going to be on this. But we're seeing things like Mr. Mind winning. We're seeing stuff like Hawkeye and Hadari Yao together on a team. We're seeing, Starro still being played, which is not my favorite character, but we're just in this really awesome place where there's a lot of great figures right now. And honestly, there's a lot of great teams that could.
And you don't have to subscribe to the meta.
Exactly.
You can do your own thing. You can start piloting that figure. I mean, I already mentioned this on the episode, which came out today, of Dial H, but something like the Chase Harley Quinn from Masters of Time. I'm blown away that this figure is not played more. Same with Wally West. Wally West, like, less so than Harley Quinn. Like, Harley Quinn is not easy to take off the board, gives insane value, has like two of the best powers in the game in Pulse Wave and Prob.
Mm-hmm.
She's a wild card. Like, the amount of stuff that this character does is just it's crazy. So I personally am going to be looking at Harley Quinn a lot more. I think probably the reason is that her keywords are Kryptonian celebrity past. She doesn't theme with a ton of stuff. People historically love to play theme. The data from Bill points that playing theme does give you a considerable advantage to winning. So, I'm not faulting anyone. But yeah, if you're going to look at any figure right now that's like outside the lines in a way, this Harley Quinn, man, is... And the thing is like, she was acknowledged as good. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yet isn't played. So the point of what I'm saying is that there are probably, I don't know, at least 10 other Harley Quinns out there right now that no one's really bothered with. And then there are figures that people have tried and put away, and they're like, yep, they're just not good enough. But then you consider something like Brother Voodoo Prime winning Worlds. So they're out there. You don't have to subscribe directly to Face Roll, Colossus, Hadari Yao. You don't have to do that. You can find the things that beat it. And I hope that this list helps you find those things, or at least makes you more prepared if you decide to play those things.
Absolutely. And next time that we get together, we will be talking about kind of tips and tricks of when you sit down against your opponent, you're going to look at threat analysis and seeing, well, okay, what are the things and strategies I can do with the team that I have to get in, or what are the things that I'm looking at as a player to kind of target first or be aware of. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, We can also look at like archetypes of builds. So, I mean, not everyone builds this way, but typically in the same way when a figure is decided meta, usually they do like one thing that's pretty good. And they do it very well. They do it better than anybody. So building a team around that same mindset of like, all right, I know I'm looking to alpha. What is the most way, or what's the best way that I can get the most damage across? Or, hey, I'm building a team that wants to live. How can I position myself to live the best life ever, and then also counterattack? How do I get the most things across the map, you know? Maybe you're playing like a blend of all these things, whatever it is, but we can look at archetypes and then targeting. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been the episode 3, the Gauntlet, Q1 of 2025. We'll probably revisit this right around the next time there's going to be a bigger event or more consistent events after the champion clicks. But yeah, this is kind of our analysis of the current 300-point meta. We hope that it helps. Please message us if you have anything else you want to say or any comments or ideas or things you just want to hear on the podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. But Ian, is there anything else you would like to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I'll quickly give a plug to my show, Dial H for Heroclix. Guys, we have some cool stuff coming probably in this next week here. The studio, I know we've talked about it so freaking much at this point. But yeah, I'm happy to say that camera's all set up now, which that was a task in itself. We've got dang near everything outside of like a few set decorations, and we're ready to rock. And now it's just about finding a day that works, but we're both busy this next weekend. So sometime after the weekend, we'll be debuting our new show. And that'll be a weekly occurrence where we kind of cover everything news. It'll be live streamed every week, same time, same place. And it'll be a really cool way for us to interact with you guys and just keep a live discussion of the game as well as just news. And in addition, because we're filming out there now, we'll have a video format for the podcast, which I think is a first for Heroclix. So
yeah,
I don't know how important that is, but I think it'll be pretty cool to be able to reference the things we're talking about on screen, to be able to, you know, add a visual element to it. There's a few shows I like watching a podcast for, and I'm hoping that maybe there's some of you guys out there who will enjoy that too. So yeah, plugging my own stuff. Listen to me more.
This guy. Get a load of this guy plugging his own stuff. No shame.
Who? Get a load of who?
Get a load of this guy.
Oh.
Sorry, I missed the joke. If there was a joke, my bad.
No, it just, you know, my mind is just wandering. I just keep thinking about that brand new mimic that I'm going to set my next client up in.
That's right. It's got a V8 tongue.
V8 tongue?
V8 tongue. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening, excuse me. And we will see you next time on the next episode of Breaking Modern.